Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to do another episode of Pixelated Memories, where I ask fellow retro gamers to share their stories of games they loved growing up. Last time around we took a look at the Mega Drive and SNES era, and this time around we're going to take a look at the generation that followed with the N64, PS1 and Sega Saturn. We're going to set it in multiple parts so that every story gets the time it deserves. If you enjoy the series, make sure you hit the like button so I know what sort of content you enjoy. And so you don't miss any future episodes in the series, make sure you hit that subscribe button with notifications on. Now grab yourself your favourite beverage, snacks, sit back and relax as we take a trip down nostalgia lane and hear everyone's stories.
What's up, Retro Peeps? John Rue here. I want to say thank you, Emmett, for having me on your channel once again. I really appreciate it. Always love talking about retro memories, talking about games. It's one of my favorite things to do. And one of my favorite memories is, must have been Christmas of 1998 or 1999, something like that. My mom worked really hard that year, and she got me a PlayStation 1 for Christmas. And I remember I opened it on Christmas Eve, the night, and she let me open it early. And I came with a Bug's Life and the Rugrats game. I came home, plugged it into my kitchen with my cousin, and we stayed up all night playing the games. Like, I was mind blown by being able to explore the Pickles home in the Rugrats game, and the 3D graphics from A Bug's Life were mind blowing to me. And it's funny because I still own both games somewhere in here. I ended up finding them at Goodwill together. I saw Rugrats and A Bug's Life for the PS1 together, and I picked them up immediately because it was like the universe telling me, like, you need it. This is like reliving your childhood. Buy these two games. But it was definitely the best Christmas that I ever had. I'll never forget it. I thank my mom so much. Moms, man, they're so cool, aren't they? They're so great. But I just got to give shout out to my mom for giving me the best Christmas ever. And it had to do with PlayStation 1, A Bug's Life, and the Rugrats. Thanks again, Budget Nostalgia, for having me on your channel, man. I definitely love you so much. I really appreciate it.
Retro Junk Reviews, a personal story about a PS1 situation. I remember back the phrase, try before you buy. Well, that's certainly what I ended up doing. It took me about 3 months to make a decision as to what physical console I was going to purchase back in 1997. Basically, every Saturday and Sunday I would spend about approximately 5 hours of spare time in an HMV in Glasgow. Now, there was about 2 or 3 at the time, and there's now only I think 1 in Glasgow now, but there was 2 or 3, and they had the game console kiosks out on display. Now, the one in particular that I was fascinated with was, as a fan of Formula 1, the F1 game on the PlayStation, and also the World Grand Prix on the N64. So the decision was made between these two consoles. Now, obviously, I'd played Mario 64 on another kiosk in HMV, and I loved it. But I wanted to take an opportunity to buy a console with my own hard-earned money. Now, I was working at a fruit shop at the time. Didn't pay much, but I had to think long and hard about what type of console I wanted to buy. And basically, what swayed me was when I played Descent on the PlayStation, and also the F1 game as well. And after playing several races, I knew exactly what console I was going to purchase back in 1987, and that was the Sony PlayStation, with the Formula 1 game, with Descent as well, and eventually I managed to purchase Tomb Raider and Crash Bandicoot, and after that the rest is history. As far as my point of view, this is the reason why I'm quite a bit of a Sony fan when it comes to the PlayStation console and games as well. So that's my personal story. from Retro Drunk Review.
What's going on, everybody? It's the VG Mobster here, and today I am proud to be talking about one of my favorite Sega Saturn games, Nights into Dreams. I love this game. I'm going to tell a little bit of the story about how I first started with this game and my overall impressions on the IP itself. My friend, when he was younger, he actually, I used to go over his house all the time. We used to play Sega Genesis, and we were really obsessed. So then when Sega Saturn got announced, his dad actually took me and him to Toys R Us in the United States, and we got Sega Saturn on launch day. He got it, and I was always over his house, so I felt like I got it too. We brought it home. Nothing like a new console day. We opened it up and we saw the controller for the Sega Saturn, and it was this big controller, and it had this analog stick on it. And we never really played with an analog stick before. We'd only really used D-pads. So when we fired up Nights, it was absolutely incredible. It was like one of my first forays into 3D. The graphics were bright. The frame rate was pretty smooth for the time. Everything was so vibrant. The worlds were so inviteful and it just blew my mind. At that time, there was really no game like that, and I feel like this IP could have been used so much more with Sega. Obviously they have a lot of IPs that could be doing this with, but just playing that Saturn game, especially on launch, it was such a good title to have, and I feel like there still is a future for this IP. Sega, if you're listening, please make another Nights. They made one for the Wii, but it wasn't as good. But this game itself was just one that I'd never forget. So thanks for having me on the video budget. And until the next one, guys, peace.
Hi everyone, it's Andrew here from Pixel Bison Magazine, and I have been asked to talk about a game. So the game I'm going to talk about is Dino Crisis for the PS1. This version here obviously isn't for the PS1, it's for the PC. I bought it sealed many years ago, and I've never ever unsealed it, and I've never played the PC version. Why do I want to talk about Dino Crisis? For me, it is the first sort of scary game, sort of horror game that I ever played. It's also, I actually played this before I played the Resident Evil series of games. The camera angles and the way the characters walk and move and interact with everything is very similar to Resident Evil, obviously. And what I loved about this being, this was in the 90s, this was 99 or so I believe this came out. Jurassic Park came out in 93, so I was very much at that age, 14 years old, so very much in the dinosaurs, obviously very much in the PS1, and I just wanted to play this. What I loved about it most was the not knowing what was behind the corner. The camera angle didn't let you see what was going on behind the corner. The only way you could know if there was something around there that you were going to encounter was perhaps the tapping of the feet in the ground. It was the dinosaur, or the noises they used to make. I can still hear it now in my head. So it was always that apprehension something was there. Loved it. The other thing I loved about it was the jump scares. I remember quite vividly, quite early on in the game, just walking down a corridor, lots of windows, and thinking something is going to smash through these windows. And lo and behold, didn't that happen? Usually only armed with a pistol, which took many shots to take one of these things down. I loved the whole inventory system. I loved the whole key cards, getting access to further parts of the game, and the most memorable part of this game for me, and for anyone else who's played it, is a scene where you're in an office and you go in there and there's a doctor who's quite badly injured, who's dying, and you get some further information out of him, and as a T-Rex smashes his head straight through the office window, straight into the building. I believe it trails the doctor away from memory, and then you have to try and get out, but you can't go out to a corner. This big T-Rex's head's right there, and it's just wanting to swallow you up, and all you've got is perhaps a shotgun, and as its head's coming in, you just shoot this shotgun, hope that's enough to distract it. So things like that, the game to me was in some ways so much more better with the camera angle that was there, and that's a whole other discussion that goes in and a whole other thing with Resident Evil. But if you've not played Dino Crisis, I highly, highly recommend it.
Hello, Dan here, aka Swooper_D, one half of the Sega guys. The 5th generation of consoles is particularly special for a lot of reasons, and for me it saw the life of my favourite console of all time, the Sega Saturn. One particularly special game that I want to talk about today is Street Fighter Alpha 2. I first played Alpha 2 at a friend's. He'd rented it from the local video shop to play on his PS1. Now at the time, 3D polygonal gaming was all anyone seemed to want, including us. However, one weekend rental made us completely forget about games like Tekken 2, and I knew instantly that I needed it for the Saturn. When I finally got my hands on the Saturn version, I knew I had something truly special. Street Fighter Alpha 2 felt like a true successor to one of my favourite games of all time at that point, the original Street Fighter 2, with everything brought bang up to date. The graphics were absolutely gorgeous, and drawn in a style that was akin to the Street Fighter 2 animated movie, and they moved so fluidly too, it was like watching a cartoon. The homages in the soundtrack to the older songs in the franchise was something that I really appreciated, and the game was chock full of Easter eggs with cameos in the backgrounds. But where the game really came into its own was the gameplay. It was deep and technical in a way only Virtua Fighter 2 could rival, albeit in a very different way. The roster is outstanding and jam-packed with iconic Street Fighters and a few brilliant Final Fight cameos. Each fighter has their own mid-boss, final boss and dialogue between fights, which really expanded the lore and tied in wonderfully to the feel of the animated movie. When it came to the core fighting, the game really was best in class, and I'd play a solo or against any family or friends I could rope in at every opportunity. Street Fighter 2 made me love fighting games, but Alpha 2 cemented my love for Capcom fighters and demonstrated beyond any doubt that the Saturn was the best system around to experience them in all their glory. It's still one of my favourite fighting games of all time and, in my opinion, a tie with Virtua Fighter 2 for the best fighting game of that generation.
Hey Budget, my friend, just to here to show you a wee video for your show. Just to you asked, you were asking me about my kind of first, one of my best memories of owning my Sega Saturn. Now, I know this isn't the Saturn version, but this is one of the best memories I think I've actually have of that particular machine, is playing this game, Sega Rally Championship, for the first time on that machine. I could not believe how good that game was. It was unreal. I mean, seriously, it was like having the arcade at my own home. I mean, it was amazing. I played the arcade so much, and it's just playing this on my home console, it was insane. I got it home, and I swear to God, I must have played it for about 3 months solid. It was absolutely amazing, and that is one of my best memories of owning that machine, and I really want it back actually, just so I can play it again. It's absolutely outstanding. So yeah, have a good one, mate, and take care of yourself and have a good show. Bye for now.
Hey, Davey PGH here. So I've been asked to make a video on a game from the Saturn, PS, and 64 era that really resonates with me. For me, that is going to be Final Fantasy VII, without any contest. I remember picking this game up back in the late 90s. I think it was 1997, maybe early 98. And I still remember picking it up at the store, bringing it home, putting the first disc in. I remember, everything about starting up this game. The storyline of it, just for some reason, it dragged me in. There was no question about it. It looked, I remember at the time thinking to myself, it looked so good and like so graphically superior at the time compared to other games, which is kind of funny because when I try and play it now, and I do still play it today, I still pick it up. I've got a game on my Switch right now that I'm maybe through the first disc of it, if I had the discs. It doesn't hold up well. It doesn't age well as far as the graphics go, but the storyline, the gameplay, the soundtrack of it, oh my god, it's amazing. It still gets me, even when I hear the victory fanfare or the boss battle music, the hairs like go up on my back. Definitely one that you should look into, definitely one you should check out. I know Remake is out there now. If you've played it, I think honestly it does the original a lot of justice. But it's not turn-based, and I think that's one of the the best parts about itself. Final Fantasy VII itself is the turn-based gameplay. I think it just makes it so much better. The live action part of Remake, definitely, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the whole game. It looked and sounded beautiful. but I would definitely recommend going back to Final Fantasy VII, trying it out, giving it a swing, and see what you think of it if you haven't already played it.
So this is a bit of a strange one. I could easily have covered any number of popular or influential games from the PlayStation, Saturn, N64 era, but rather than cover one of those, what I've decided to do is instead tell you a sort of personal story, really, about a game that's far from popular, definitely not influential or even liked, to be honest. So this is about Bubsy 3D. Now, back in 1997, I was working for a video games wholesale company, and we supplied games to UK retail as well as overseas wholesalers. We had our own publishing arm. Most of our wholesale business was done overseas because the publishing arm sales guy in the UK had actually awarded an exclusive distribution contract to one of our competitors, which of course was a ridiculous move. It meant that we, as the distribution company in the UK, we weren't actually able to sell our own company's games within the UK. Now, we were allowed to sell them across Europe, and the people we dealt with across Europe were often business people with little interest in games. So myself and a colleague, what we had to do was fax them information sheets, inform them of upcoming games, and very briefly give them an idea of what games were using one line, very minimal descriptions, to gauge their interest and to get pre-orders from them. Now, one of the titles our publishing division had picked up to publish in the UK, and which we weren't actually allowed to sell ourselves in the UK, was Bubsy 3D. And for fairly obvious reasons, our publishing company had managed to pick it up because no one else wanted to touch it. It'd been out in America already and had been a bit of a disaster. So we were left scratching our heads as to how best to sell the game in one sentence, and what we settled on, I think, was an absolute classic of marketing copy, and I quote this word for word. Is this the PlayStation's answer to Super Mario 64? Could be. Now, I don't need to tell you that no, it absolutely was not PlayStation's answer to Mario 64. Actually, it would turn out to be such a dud, it's regularly voted one of the worst games of all time. So yeah, that's my story about Bubsy 3D. I do have many more stories about my time in distribution, as well as other levels of the games industry. But the Bubsy 3D one in particular, for that era, I think really sticks out. And it's something I'm always thinking of as one that it always kind of really amuses me that we were able to try pushing it to people by comparing it to the massive and obviously very highly regarded and influential Super Mario 64.
Hello, Nick here from the YouTube channel Retro Break. Budget Nostalgia has asked me to share one of my favourite memories from the N64 era, and I have chosen the game Banjo-Kazooie to tell you guys just a few reasons why it means so much to me. Banjo-Kazooie for me was my childhood in a nutshell. I played it all the time, non-stop. It really was a game that meant a lot to me, and I can't pinpoint just one story, so I'm going to share with you a few nice little memories that I've got of the game. One of them is the fact that I used to have a strategy guide with this game. I think it came in a magazine back when it came out, and I remember my mum, she wasn't a huge gamer and she didn't really always show a lot of interest, but she really enjoyed watching me play this game, and she used to sit next to me with the strategy guide, and I played the entire way through the game 100% complete, and she helped me track down every single jiggy and every single music note, and that's something that I'll always treasure. Another really nice memory I have is my granddad drew me a picture of the cover from Banjo-Kazooie. He used to be an amazing artist. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but I will always cherish that drawing that he did for me. And it's not just the game that I loved everything. I loved the music. I would go to bed every night humming the themes to places like Bubble Gloop Swamp and Treasure Trove Cove. This game honestly means so much to me, and it's actually making me want to go back and play it again just doing this video. There's so many more memories that I could share about this game. I really did play it all the time. I love all of the different levels and all of the different themes, but maybe I'll save that for a video on my own channel at some point in the future. Hopefully that was enough to go on. Thank you so much for having me on this episode, and I'm really looking forward to seeing other people's memories. Thanks, Budget Nostalgia. Goodbye.
I hope you enjoyed part 1 of the series. We have so many more great stories to come, so be sure to look out for those videos. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to share some of your memories in the comment section below. Stay involved as always. Happy gaming.